Hi, everybody. I'm Josh Earl.
And I'm Will Garcia.
And together we're the Hoops Guys. And today we'll be talking about my second kind of home team. I spent 5 years in Denver. It's where I met my wife, and I even had season tickets to this team in 2007, 2008.
Nice.
As you can see behind me and on my head and on my chest, we will be talking about the Denver Nuggets today.
Yeah, and they had a kind of disappointing year last year. Finishing 36 and 46. Didn't make the playoffs. It was pretty underwhelming.
Yeah, and despite being mostly underwhelming, they did do some good stuff defensively last year.
Yeah.
They contested shots at the rim fairly well. They wound up 10th in restricted area defensive field goal percentage. But they didn't just contest shots at the rim. They also contested them above the break, winding up tied for 5th in above the break 3-point defensive field goal percentage.
Yeah, and on the offensive side, they only finished 17th in offensive rating, but there was a lot of good stuff going on there. The Nuggets got analytically solid shots, tying for 4th in XPPS, and a lot of that was due to them getting a lot of shots at the rim, where they finished 8th in restricted area true shooting attempts. Part of Ian Levy's XPPS statistics are down in the description on every single video. Exactly. They also shot the 3rd fewest shots from mid-range and finished 3rd in corner 3 percentage.
Yeah, and additionally, they finished 5th in offensive rebound rate, due in no small part to
the Manimal!
Yes!
Kenneth Faried, he had a good year, especially after the All-Star break. He put up 18 and 11 after the All-Star break, shooting 55% from the floor, 70% from the line. A lot of that was due to him receiving more minutes. 25 minutes per game before the break, 31 minutes per game after the break. But he also showed improvements in his post-game and mid-range shooting. If the Manimal can combine his rebounding and energy, sort of his just tenaciousness, if he can combine that with some skill and being more refined on the offensive end, he can be an even more important part of this Nuggets team going forward, and he's totally on the all-hair team.
Yes, definitely on the all-hair team. Probably a starter. One guy who's not on the all-hair team, but also had a really strong year for the Nuggets last year, was my boy Mozzie, or Timofey Mozgov. A lot of people probably still remember him from getting dunked on by Blake Griffin, but
they also remember that infographic that they had after that game where a city got 91 points.
Yeah, I remember
like 58 rebounds or whatever.
Yeah. He didn't have quite that good a year, but he really took advantage of increased playing time derived from JaVale McGee's absence, and it led to a career year. He had the highest points per 36 minutes, true shooting percentage, defensive rebound rate, assist rate, all while posting his lowest fouls per game and lowest turnover rate per game on his highest usage rate in his career. So pretty much across the board, Mozzie delivered in career year terms.
Yeah, one of those things you mentioned, turnover percentage. That was a killer for this team, though.
Yes.
21st in turnover percentage. And additionally, there were a couple areas on the court they just weren't hitting shots at. 21st in above the break 3 percentage, 28th in the paint percentage, 27th for mid-range percentage, and they didn't even do that well from the line, 27th in free throw percentage. You got to make those free throws.
Yes. Defensively, not everything went well either. They gave opponents far too many attempts from the free throw line, finishing 23rd in defensive free throw attempt per field goal attempt. And for a team that has an almost epigenetic desire to push the pace, it was kind of strange to see them tied for only 23rd in defensive turnover rate, when we all know that live ball turnovers are not necessarily essential, but they tend to be the fuel that feeds the fast break flames.
Exactly.
Holy alliteration.
Although the Nuggets held opponents to weak percentages around the rim and from above the break, they still only wound up 21st in defensive rating. They gave up the 8th highest defensive field goal percentage, both in the paint and from mid-range, and they also gave up the 10th highest opponent field goal percentage from the extremely valuable corner 3 areas.
Yeah, and part of the reason that this year didn't really go as well as planned was injuries.
Yeah.
Danilo Gallinari missed the entire season with knee problems. JaVale McGee missed 77 games with a broken
basically
leg.
the entire season.
Yeah. And even Wilson Chandler and Ty Lawson each missed 20 games. Mm-hmm. And in an extremely tough Western Conference, and factoring a new head coach, which always takes a little bit of time, that was just simply far too many player minutes lost due to injury for them to compete.
Yeah. But one guy who should help them compete this year is a new addition. Well, not really a new addition.
A return addition.
Exactly. Aaron Aflalo.
Yes.
And I like Evan Fournier, to be fair. And I wasn't quite as down on that trade for the Magic as a lot of people were. But the Magic still got a worse deal than the Nuggets did in this one. Because the Nuggets got Aaron Aflalo back. And he's a more than capable off-ball threat and a really good spot-up shooter. He's a good shot creator for himself, and he's a good facilitator for his teammates. Basically, on offense, if you need points, Aaron Aflalo can find a way to get them, either for himself or for everybody else. And then on defense, he plays, when he's on his game, he plays a really smart, risk-averse style of defense. He doesn't really gamble very much. It's just consistently making good, solid plays.
What I call process D.
Exactly. It isn't going to make it onto the Sports Center highlights, but it's what every coach from every level of basketball wants their guys to be doing. So I think that Nuggets fans should be pretty happy to have him back.
Yes, we are. Another player that the Nuggets are going to be happy to have back this year is Danilo Gallinari. Like I mentioned, he missed all of last season due to injury, but while he hasn't really truly lived up to the initial proclamation his rookie year by then head coach Mike D'Antoni that Gallo was the best shooter he'd ever seen, we are still talking about a 6'10 player that defenses respect behind the arc, who is also a very good tertiary shot creator off the bounce, and a capable, more than capable facilitator. And on top of that, he's a sound defender capable of playing both
really
forward positions. So he brings a lot of versatility to this team, and he's definitely going to help once he shakes off any rust.
Absolutely. Another guy who's going to be coming back from injury is the aforementioned JaVale McGee.
Yep.
And you probably don't agree with me at all when I say this. I think he might be a little bit underrated. Yeah, he jumps at pretty much every single pump fake you put at him. Yes, if there's a rotation, he's going to botch it. Yeah, he's a lock to lead the league in WTFs per 36. He does have some value, though, as a rim deterrent and as a decent dive man sort of guy who can catch alley-oops and stuff. There are some things he can do on a basketball court other than Shaq the Fool. So for a big man off the bench, I think there are a couple worse options. But for $23 million over the next 2 years, that's just downright ugly.
Yeah, one thing I can say is at least he gives Denver residents the opportunity to see a 7-foot-tall man pilot a Segway down 16th Street Mall. So there's that.
Yeah, one guy who won't be doing that, but maybe not because he hates Segways, but more so because he's 6'3", is Gary Harris.
Yes.
Gary Harris was a bit underwhelming as a perimeter shooter, dropping from 41% his freshman year to 35% last year from Michigan State. But he also stepped it up on the defensive end, and he became a legitimate 1A option. Got to give a shout out to Adrian Payne, that's our boy. And that was a hell of a Spartans team that he was doing all of that on.
Oh, yes.
But despite his really useful skill set, I don't expect Harris to contribute all that much this year. In the 3 games that the Nuggets have played since the time of filming, Gary and I have gotten the same amount of time. 0.
Yeah. One rookie, though, that has gotten some time already is Yusuf Nurkic.
Yeah.
A friend of mine used to work at KK Zadar, where Nurkic used to play, and he told me that he's only really been playing basketball for a little while now. He started out actually as a handball player.
Wasn't his dad a handball player?
Yeah, I believe so. So he's still really raw, but he is huge. Like,
True.
He's not freakishly JaVale McGee lengthwise, but he's 7-footer, 280 pounds.
Yeah. He doesn't miss meals.
He's big, and not like Oliver Miller doesn't miss meals, but like he's a solid 280. And he's already showing a strong aptitude on the boards, and just with his sheer size, he should act as somewhat of a rim deterrent. They're also adding in another young guy. He wasn't from this past draft, but the previous draft.
Not a rim deterrent.
No, not a rim deterrent. A rim attacker, though. Somebody I'm really excited to see in the Nuggets uniform, Eric Green.
Yeah.
He was a very good shot creator and scorer in the half court, and a freaking dynamo in transition when he was at Virginia Tech. And he also continued those same skill sets and production overseas last year before finally joining.
Let's try
the
to
Nuggets.
pronounce the name of that team.
Yeah,
Montepashi
Siena, I believe.
Okay.
I apologize if I mispronounced it, but that's where he played. And likewise with Virginia Tech, he ran his butt off and did it well. And part of the reason why I'm really excited to see him as a Nugget is because his dynamicism. He's very dynamic in transition. So I think that makes him a perfect backup for Ty Lawson. I think it allows the Nuggets to continue to push the pace down the opponent's throat and not give them a moment to breathe when Ty is out of the game, because Eric's going to push the pace just like Ty.
Exactly. A guy who isn't a speed demon but is still a hell of a player is Evan Fournier, who I think is the biggest loss for this Nuggets team. Obviously, like we mentioned, the Aflalo trade. So I think it was a smart trade, but he still has a lot of ways that he contributed to this Nuggets team. For one, his shot is damn good. He's an impeccable offensive skill set. He's a great shooter, good finisher, good ball handlers, really underrated court vision. And I think he's underrated defensively because he doesn't look like a defender. He isn't your lockdown guy. He isn't your 6'8", 215-pound prototypical wing with the 7'3" wingspan and the 38-inch vertical who can run a mile in like 8 seconds. But what he can do is fight through screens, stay on assignments, operate well in the team defensive system. He's really good at funneling guys into help. It's something that I've noticed that Fournier is really good at. So, like, the part of your defense that you play up here, which is, I think, more than 80% of it, he is really good at that as well. So that's going to be a bit of a loss, but considering that the guy they brought in is kind of better at all of those things, I don't think it's that big of an issue.
Yeah, speaking of not big of an issue, Anthony Randolph is another player that's not going to be with the Nuggets this year. At 6'10", with that aforementioned 7'3" wingspan, and he's shown flashes, tantalizing flashes of off-the-bounce ability, and which kind of brings to mind guys like Lamar Odom, for instance. So combine those physical traits with those tantalizing flashes of ball handling ability, and he sounds almost like a player created in a lab for basketball purposes. But he's never really been able to live up to the hype and proclamations of his immense potential at any of the stops that he's played at.
Yeah, another guy who some people think hasn't lived up to his potential, especially since he won that Most Improved Player award down in Houston, Aaron Brooks. He played in 29 games for the Nuggets after being traded from, again, the Houston. He started 12 of those games, and he averaged 12 points and 5 assists on 41, 36, 90 shooting splits. He can get past the defense with his first step, and this team had a lot of good perimeter shooters, I think, at least. Maybe not last year, but they would have this year.
Well, with Afflalo and Gallo coming back, along with Foy, and hopefully a more healthy Ty Lawson, they'll have some pretty good spot-up shooters.
So for this year, if they kept him, that skill set could have been valuable. But he's also struggles with decision-making. He isn't really the best shot creator for himself. So with Eric Green coming in, I don't think that this is much of a loss at all. I actually think Eric Green's an upgrade.
Yeah, speaking of not much of a loss, Jan Vesely also is no longer a Denver Nugget. I actually had the opportunity to watch him in the Vegas Summer League in 2013 with a friend of mine who's an executive for an NBA team, and he described him as Jan Vesely. So I don't think the Nuggets are really going to lose much sleep over the absence of Jan Vesely.
Oh, I see what you did there. Not going to lose my... dude, you're killing it. Anyway, hopefully you don't lose too much sleep over our 5 questions, because sleep deprivation is a serious problem, and despite it being an awesome segment, it's not that important. But what it does do is it allows us to talk about some things we otherwise wouldn't have been able to get to. I've got the first question, and it's coming right to you, Josh.
All right.
How is this team going to manage a cramped wing rotation with Afflalo, Wilson Chandler, Danilo Gallinari, and Randy Foye all having legitimate claims to big minutes?
Yeah, that's going to be tough. Well, Wilson and Danilo are going to split a lot of time at the small forward and minutes at the small forward, but also get some minutes at power forward as well. Randy Foye might get some backup point guard minutes. Afflalo and either Wilson or Danilo are probably going to be the starters and the big minute wing guys, with everyone else having to find minutes where they can get them. Unfortunately, this also means that some young players that we mentioned earlier might not get a whole lot of minutes, which leads into my question for you. Which is, with such a deep veteran rotation, can the young guys that we mentioned earlier, Gary Harris, Yusuf Nurkic, and Eric Green, carve out any meaningful role anytime soon?
I think that it depends if you look at it player by player. So that's kind of how I'm going to break it down. I don't think Gary Harris has much of a chance at getting big minutes this year.
Not without injuries.
Exactly. Just because they have Randy Foye already, they have all the wings we mentioned, they have Afflalo, they have a bunch of guys who are going to be hogging up those 2-guard minutes. And Harris, he's a solid passer for a 2, but I don't think they're going to be putting him at the 1.
No.
And it's not like they have a nominal point guard, or not nominal, but it's not like they have a role point guard that they can put in as like a ball handler kind of facilitator guy to put in and let Gary Harris guard the point. So there's that issue too. So I don't think that Gary Harris does much else other than spend time in the D-League this year. Nurkic. I think Nurkic can get some minutes. The big rotation, you have Mozzie, you have Hickson, who I'm not a fan of. I'm not sure if they are either.
They signed him, didn't they?
Did you Jerry sign him?
Huh?
Which GM signed him?
No, it was Conley.
It was, okay.
Yeah.
He's one of those guys, to get on a little bit of a short, quick tangent, where the metrics look much better than the reality. The reality is 62% true shooting. The reality is those were all like dunks, dude.
Just a quick addendum. This is what I call a Ricky Davis triple-double corollary. wherein production does not necessarily equate to impact.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's perfect. So for Nurkic, I think that who he really has to beat out for the backup center spot is J.J. Hickson, who's probably going to be getting some of his minutes at the 4, and JaVale McGee.
Yeah.
Nurkic can do that right now.
I think
For
at
like 10
least
minutes.
until McGee is, feeling 100% and has a good game or two, Nurkic will probably be able to carve out a nice role there.
Agreed. And then for Eric Green, who else is going to be playing as a backup point guard? You have Ty Lawson, who's going to be getting about 30, 32, 33 a night. Foy might get some minutes down there at the backup 1. But, I mean, I don't think they didn't keep... What do you say?
Crypto Nate.
Oh,
He's
yeah,
still
they
on
do
the
have
roster.
Nate. Nate's going to be... They did keep Nate. Somebody kept Nate. That was pretty weird. That usually doesn't happen. But I think he can get some minutes. But it's another one of those things where it depends on how injuries break down. A lot of that stuff I can't really see into the future. The one guy I'd bank on being able to contribute this year would be Nurkic.
Yeah. Which is funny because he's the rawest of them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So for the third question, how long does Brian Shaw have to get to the second round before his seat gets as hot as Dylon spitting hot fire? Dylon! Dylon. And then we continue.
It's tough to say because that is precisely the reason why George Karl, who was with this team for a long time and was very successful, was kind of denied any sort of attempt at an extension, and that's what led to the ultimate dismissal of him after he won Coach of the Year in the year before last. So they clearly brought in Brian Shaw to get into that second round and to progress further in the playoffs. And Brian Shaw has said all the right things about trying to become a better half-court, smash-mouth type team so that come playoff time, that they won't struggle as much. But the West is really tough, and I'm not so sure this team has what it needs to make it to the second round particularly easily. So Brian Shaw might start finding his seat hot if they don't at least make the playoffs or come in a very close ninth this year, or if they don't get more than the 8th seed in the season after this one. So Brian Shaw might start feeling that Dylon flame somewhat relatively soon. But the Nuggets organization might also be feeling some heat on their seats leading into the 2016 offseason, as only Ty Lawson, Kenneth Faried, and the aforementioned rookie guys we discussed earlier, Harris, Eric Green, and Nurkic, are on the books after that season. Mm-hmm. So since the 2016 offseason free agency class doesn't really have a whole lot of people that make sense on this roster, and the Nuggets have traditionally not been the most attractive free agent destination market, what do you think their plan is?
I don't know. That 2016-17 free agency sort of thing, 2016 free agents, most of the guys are going to stay where they're at. You have Kobe, he's either retiring or not really going to go anywhere. Joe Johnson, who might retire. You have LeBron, who's probably sticking in Cleveland.
Definitely sticking in Cleveland.
Yeah, you have Durant, who definitely isn't going to Denver. You have Kevin Love, who also isn't going to Denver. You have Brook Lopez, who maybe, but he doesn't really make sense on the roster. You have Wade, who's probably either going to retire or stay in Miami. You have Roy Hibbert. If he doesn't pick up that player option, which he's going to pick up that player option for.
Yeah, he'll pick up that player option.
Yeah, which they might, but he doesn't really fit the roster if they're trying to go more fast break oriented. Eric Gordon, but why? David Lee, nah. Joakim Noah staying in Chicago. So there really aren't that many guys in that free agency class who make sense on this roster. They might make some sort of a trade. They might be looking to build through the draft. I don't know what's going on.
One thing I would probably bet on is that they'll wind up re-signing several of their own free agents that offseason, which tends to be the case with them, even in the Masai era. Asset maintenance kind of seems to be...
especially in the Masai era.
Yeah, but it's an organizational thing. They're run by the family that's married to the Walton family. So they kind of run like a Walmart somewhat. Mm-hmm. And so, they're not too keen on letting assets get away for nothing. So if they do strike out on those aforementioned free agents, which, let's be honest, they probably will, they'll either have to try to use their cap space to acquire players in a trade, or they'll wind up re-upping guys like Gallo, Aflalo, Wilson. Hopefully not JaVale, but maybe JaVale.
Yeah, at least not for double figures.
So.
Yep. Yeah, you're probably right. They probably are going to re-sign most people. Speaking of re-signing most people, this team has got a lot of people who significantly contribute to it. Can the Nuggets' strategy of going 1 through 10 strong, as opposed to having like a superstar, or even 2 or 3, can that work in terms of being a championship contender? I
think in perfect circumstances it can. Mm-hmm. The problem is somewhat like I mentioned before, that they're not a particularly attractive free agent destination market. So for them to get like a star player, they'd have to draft or trade for one. And both are kind of crapshoots they're not as easy as people think. So I think that's partly why they've gone the way they have, also because they haven't been able to get a star. I'm sure if a star was available for them and the other team was willing to make the deal, they'd do it instantaneously. But I think that strategy makes sense for them, and it could really work. But you have to make sure that 1 through 10, those guys all are what I call elevate guys.
Yeah.
So they're not just good players overall, but all their skill sets mesh with, enhance, and otherwise elevate the overall team performance. So you can have, and especially, like I mentioned, they have almost like an epigenetic desire to push the pace in Denver because of the altitude. Given the context of that, you want to make sure that you have guys on the roster who are capable of playing at a fast pace, but who are also going to have complementary skill sets that make sure that when the Nuggets are in the half court, which, let's be honest, even the fastest paced team last year, the Sixers, they were still only in transition roughly like 1/5 of the time of their possessions.
Yeah.
Most of the time, by far, most of the time they wound up in half court. Now, of course, secondary transition and early offense plays into that. But most teams are going to have to be somewhat successful in the half court to be successful. So if the Nuggets want to be a championship contender, they're going to have to make sure that the guys that they get all mesh well together and overall raise the waters of the team's performance so that all ships rise and they can actually really start knocking on that contention door.
Absolutely. And I think that if you go 10 deep and you're pushing the pace, and personally, if I'm going 10 deep and I'm playing a bunch of people 20, 25 minutes a game, I'm trying to tire you out.
Yep.
I'm going to be playing physical defense. I'm going to be running like a banshee. We're just going to be going full out, full force, and we want you tired, especially in that altitude, like you mentioned.
Yep.
I think that is a strategy where it's the cohesion of it, I guess, for lack of a better way to put it. It's very synergistic.
Yep.
Something that hopefully winds up being synergistic is our 20, 50, 80 predictions. That's where we say things that are 20%, 50%, and 80% likely that we think might happen during the course of this season. So, Josh, take it away with your predictions.
So I think it's 20% likely that the Nuggets make a consolidation trade for a borderline all-star who's maybe disgruntled. I don't know exactly how it would play out, hence it's only 20%, but I would not be surprised to see them package a couple of those rotation guys for an upgrade. 2-3 players for one.
That wouldn't be surprising. Kind of like a reverse Melo deal.
Kind of, yeah. I think it's 50% likely that the Nuggets wind up in the battle for the final couple playoff spots in the West, leading up to the very final game of the season.
Cool.
Yeah. And I think it's 80% likely that the Manimal kind of becomes the face of this franchise for casual fans after the Team USA stuff.
Yeah. And that leads perfectly into mine because I think that it's 20% likely he makes the All-Star team. And that sounds kind of like a knock, but if you think about it, LaMarcus Aldridge, Blake Griffin, Tim Duncan, Zach Randolph, want me to keep going because I can, David Lee. There are a lot of people, especially bigs in the Western Conference. Dirk. How to forget Dirk?
Can't forget Dirk.
You cannot forget Dirk. It is
How dare you?
International
for almost forgetting Dirk.
Exactly. Not good. Not a good look. But there are so many bigs in the Western Conference who are really good because there are so many players in the Western Conference who are really good, and that's not even the centers yet. So, in terms of big dudes getting in, it's really tough. But if he can play like he did after that All-Star break, you gotta at least think about it.
Yeah.
Speaking of think about it, I thought about it a bit, and I think that it's 50% likely that this Nuggets team improves by 10 games.
Yeah.
So they go up to 46. I think that is like the average sort of what I think they're going to do. So that's why I put it at 50.
Fair enough.
One thing that I think is more likely than 50% to happen, hence the 80% prediction, is that JaVale McGee makes it onto at least 10 Shacking a Fool videos. What's the over-under on this one, Josh? I say like 11 and a half.
Maybe.
Because they do it once a month. No, they do it once a week.
Yeah. I think you're spot on. He'll be on at least 10 of them. Being on Shaqtin' a Fool at least 10 times is not a very good thing to occur, but the real question is, how good is this team going to be this year?
B-. That's about where I'd put him at, like a B-, maybe a low B. They're going to be an all-right team. They're going to win some games. They're going to be fun to watch. Maybe make the playoffs.
I think they will be good, but it takes great to make the playoffs in the West.
Yeah.
So I think it'll come down to, can they be great this year? It's possible. It's conceivable if the Afflalo and Gallo return to peak form, and nobody else really misses big time, and that rotation really clicks.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't hold my breath on it.
Exactly. One thing that we hope we can hold our breath on is maybe you hitting that like button if you liked it, or that dislike button if you didn't like it. Hopefully the former, but if it's the latter, we're cool. Leave a comment down below saying whether or not you like the video or whether or not you like this team. And if you did like the video or you do like this team, maybe consider sharing this video on Twitter or Facebook or Reddit or Tumblr or email or
wherever.
Morse code. However you gotta, if you want to share it, we're not going to stop you. And then additionally, there's a subscribe button down below. If you hit that, you get notified of all of our future videos. So thank you so much for watching. It's been a blast, guys.
Take care, everyone.
And peace out.
Bye.